There's a shame that isn't spoken aloud, that of being invisible in a world that celebrates experience. Chiara was 28 years old and carried a secret that weighed like a sentence. She had never been kissed, not by choice, but by fear. Fear of not being enough, of not knowing how, of being ridiculous. She had built walls so high that no one had ever managed to truly get close. Until the day a man with eyes of ice and a heart everyone believed was broken told her, "Let me be your first everything." If this story touches your heart, subscribe to the channel and leave a like. Comment where you're listening from, and if you feel it was really worth it, consider becoming a member to get early access to upcoming stories. Your support makes all the difference. Matteo Ferrante's office occupied the entire top floor of the skyscraper that dominated the city. Everything was glass and steel, precise lines, cold surfaces that reflected light like blades. There was nothing soft in there, nothing that invited confidence. It was a space built to intimidate, to remind anyone who entered who was in charge. And Matteo Ferrante was in charge of everything. At 36, he was the most feared CEO in Italy, ruthless in business, relentless in decisions, incapable of tolerating incompetence. Economic magazines called him the Wolf of Milan, an elegant predator who devoured struggling companies and transformed them into empires. No one had ever seen Matteo really smile. No one had ever seen him hesitate. And no one, ever, had seen him interested in a woman for more than one night. Chiara Rossi knew nothing of all this when she pressed the button for the 50th floor that November morning. She had arrived 20 minutes early for the interview, a resume printed on too cheap paper and a heart beating so hard it hurt. She needed this job, desperately. Her degree in comparative literature had been useless in the 3 years spent doing temporary work. But this time was different. Personal assistant to the CEO. She had no experience in that field, but her attention to detail, her organizational ability, her absolute dedication could compensate. They had to compensate. The elevator doors opened with a soft hiss. Chiara took a deep breath, straightened her shoulders, and took the first step into Matteo Ferrante's world. The reception was a suspended space, all white and silver. A perfectly made-up woman behind a perfectly organized desk barely raised her eyes. "Chiara Rossi," the voice was polite but cold. "I'm expected at 9, Chiara said, and she hated the tremor in her voice. "Mr. Ferrante will see you now. Last door at the end of the hallway." Chiara nodded and set off. Her heels, not high enough, not elegant enough, made too much noise on the marble. Each step seemed like an accusation. "You don't belong here. You're not sophisticated enough. You're not experienced enough. You're not enough." The office door was ajar. Chiara knocked lightly, heart in throat. "Come in." The voice was deep, controlled, impossible to decipher. Chiara pushed the door and entered. And stopped. Matteo Ferrante was standing in front of the glass wall overlooking the city, hands behind his back, straight spine, broad shoulders under the tailored black suit. He didn't turn immediately. For one long moment, Chiara remained motionless on the threshold, waiting, feeling studied even though he wasn't looking at her. Then, slowly, Matteo turned. He was beautiful in a way that hurt. Not handsome like an actor, but beautiful like a blade, sharp, dangerous, impossible to ignore. Gray eyes, almost silver, that looked at you as if they saw every secret. Hard features, defined jaw, serious mouth that promised no sweetness. Black hair combed back with almost violent precision. He was the incarnation of absolute control. And when those gray eyes settled on Chiara, she felt her entire body react in a way she had never experienced before. Fear, attraction, shame for both. "Miss Rossi," Matteo said, and his voice was like velvet hiding steel. "Sit down." Chiara moved too quickly, almost stumbling, and dropped into the chair in front of the desk. Matteo sat on the other side, hands folded on the glass surface, and looked at her. Simply looked at her. In silence. For seconds, that felt like hours. Chiara felt the blush rising from her neck, invading her cheeks. She hated blushing. She hated being so transparent. She hated that he could see how nervous she was, how out of place, how inadequate. "Do you have experience as a personal assistant?" Matteo finally asked. "No," Chiara admitted, and the word came out too small. "But I have excellent organizational skills. I'm punctual, reliable, detail-oriented. I learn quickly and work hard." Matteo tilted his head, studying her. "Have you worked in a corporate environment?" "Not exactly," Chiara said. "But I managed complex projects during university and—" "What projects?" Matteo's voice was neutral, but there was something in his eyes. Curiosity, perhaps, or just the pleasure of seeing her flounder. "I coordinated the organization of an international conference on Renaissance literature," Chiara said, and she heard how ridiculous it sounded. 300 participants, 4 days, 12 parallel sessions. I managed everything alone. Schedule, logistics, hospitality, budget. Matteo raised an eyebrow. "Renaissance literature." "Yes," Chiara said, lifting her chin. "I know it's not relevant to this position, but the skills are transferable. Organization, problem-solving under pressure, managing difficult personalities." "Difficult personalities?" Matteo repeated. And there was something that could be almost a smile in the corner of his mouth. Almost. "University professors," Chiara said. "They're demanding." This time Matteo really smiled. It was a small smile, controlled, that didn't reach his eyes. But it was a smile. I imagined so. There was another silence. Matteo continued to look at her, and Chiara didn't know where to put her hands, where to look, how to breathe normally. "Why do you want this job, Miss Rossi?" Matteo asked. "Are you honestly qualified?" Chiara hesitated. She could lie. She could invent a corporate, professional answer. But something in those gray eyes told her that Matteo Ferrante saw lies and punished them. "No," Chiara said, and her voice trembled, but didn't break. "I'm not qualified. I have no experience in this sector, but I need this job, and I'll learn. I'm willing to work harder than anyone else. I'm willing to do whatever it takes." Matteo leaned slightly forward. "Anything?" The way he said it sent a shiver down Chiara's spine. It wasn't threatening. It was something else, something she couldn't name. "Anything professional," Chiara said, holding his gaze, even though every instinct told her to look away. Matteo stared at her for another long moment. Then he stood, turned toward the window. "Do you have any idea what it means to work for me, Miss Rossi?" he asked, his voice suddenly harder. "It means being available 24 hours a day. It means anticipating my needs before I express them. It means absolute perfection. Always. No excuses. No mistakes. No personal life that interferes with work." Chiara swallowed. "I understand." "Do you understand?" Matteo turned, and now his eyes were cold. "I've had 16 assistants in the last 5 years. None lasted more than 6 months. They all thought they understood. None really understood. I'm different," Chiara said, and she was surprised by the firmness in her voice. Matteo returned to the desk, stopped in front of her. From that distance, Chiara could smell his scent. Sandalwood, something clean and expensive, completely masculine. "Different how?" he asked, and there was a challenge in his voice. "I have no expectations," Chiara said. "I have no illusions about who I am or where I belong. I know this is beyond my reach, but that's exactly why I'll fight to stay. I have no plan B. This is all I have. The naked truth, raw, in the cold room. Matteo looked at her, and for the first time, something shifted in his gaze. You can start Monday, he said. Chiara blinked. What? You can start Monday. 8 o'clock sharp, not a minute later. Really? Chiara felt tears sting her eyes and pushed them back forcefully. Seriously? I don't repeat things, Miss Rossi. Thank you, Chiara whispered. Thank you. I won't disappoint you, I promise. We'll see, Matteo said, and sat back down. You may go. Chiara stood, legs trembling, and headed for the door. Miss Rossi. She stopped, turned. Matteo was looking at her with an expression she couldn't read. Welcome to hell, he said. Chiara arrived Monday morning at 7:45. She had spent the weekend buying 2 decent suits with money she didn't have, studying everything she could find online about Matteo Ferrante and his company, mentally preparing for what awaited her. But nothing had really prepared her. The desk assigned to her was 5 meters from Matteo's office door, a perfectly organized space with a new computer, a phone that looked as complicated as an airplane cockpit, and a stack of files that reached almost to eye level. These are the dossiers you need to memorize by today, said Elena, the HR manager, a woman in her 40s, with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. All company partners, main suppliers, key competitors. Mr. Ferrante expects you to know every detail. Names, numbers, dynamics, everything. Chiara looked at the pile and felt panic rising. By today? By tonight, Elena corrected. Mr. Ferrante always does a test on the first day. If you don't pass, you won't see a second day. A test? He'll ask you random questions. If you can't answer immediately, you're done. Elena turned to leave, then stopped. A word of advice, Miss Rossi. Don't get attached. Nobody lasts. Chiara spent the first 4 hours motionless at her desk, reading, highlighting, taking frantic notes. Names mixed with numbers, companies with agreements, faces with stories. Her head pulsed, but she continued. She had to continue. At 11:35, the intercom on her desk beeped. Miss Rossi, in my office. Now. Matteo's voice, dry, impersonal. Chiara stood so quickly she almost spilled the coffee she hadn't had time to drink. She straightened her jacket, took a notepad and pen, and knocked on his door. Come in. Matteo was at his desk, focused on 3 different screens, fingers flying across the keyboard. He didn't look up. Mr. Lombardi from the Venturi Group called. What do you know about him? He asked without preamble. Chiara swallowed. Giuseppe Lombardi, 52 years old, CEO of Venturi Holdings. You have a partnership on real estate development in Turin. Project value, $420 million. He's married to Francesca Venturi, the founder's daughter. 3 children. 2 sons in the company, 1 daughter, studying architecture in London. Matteo stopped typing. He looked up. Continue. Mr. Lombardi is conservative in decisions, prefers low-risk investments. He refused your expansion proposal in Romania last year. He has a villa in Como and a passion for vintage Ferraris. His favorite Ferrari is a 1962 250 GTO. Matteo looked at her for a long moment. How do you know about the Ferrari? There was an article in a 2019 interview. I thought it might be relevant for building rapport. Matteo leaned back in his chair, fingers interlaced. You memorized all this in 4 hours? Yes. Everything? Most of it. There are some minor companies that... Tomorrow, I want those too. Of course. There was silence. Matteo continued to look at her, and Chiara felt transparent again, exposed, as if he could see her every thought. Have you had lunch? He asked suddenly. Chiara blinked. What? It's a simple question, Miss Rossi. Have you had lunch? No, I didn't have time. Go get something. You need to be sharp, not starving. But I need to finish. It's not a request. Chiara nodded and turned to leave. Miss Rossi, she stopped. You did good work this morning. It was the first time he had complimented her. The words were simple, spoken without emphasis, but something in Chiara's chest melted. Thank you, she said, and left before he could see her smile. The following weeks were a whirlwind. Chiara worked 12, 14, sometimes 16 hours a day. She learned Matteo's rhythms, the way he preferred his coffee, black, double, no sugar. The fact that he hated phone calls after 7 in the evening, but checked emails until midnight. That he always read contracts twice and legal documents 3 times. That he didn't tolerate incompetence, but respected those who admitted mistakes. That he had a way of looking at people that made them feel completely naked. And she learned something else, something that wasn't written in any file. Matteo Ferrante was terribly lonely. She saw it in the way he stayed in the office until late, even when there was no urgent work, and the fact that he had no personal photos on his desk, no calls that weren't work-related, no one waiting for him at home. She saw it in the way he sometimes stopped in front of the window, looking at the city, and seemed like a man who had conquered everything except peace. One evening, 3 weeks after starting, Chiara was about to leave when she saw a light still on in Matteo's office. It was past 9. She hesitated, then knocked lightly. Come in. Matteo was at the window, a glass of whiskey in hand, jacket removed, shirt sleeves rolled up. He looked tired in a way that went beyond simple physical fatigue. I thought I'd make sure you didn't need anything before leaving, Chiara said. Matteo turned, looked at her. You're always the last to leave. I work for you. If you're here, I'm here. It's not in your contract. I know, Chiara said, but it's right. Matteo drank a sip of whiskey, eyes on her. Do you have a life outside this office? Miss Rossi? Chiara laughed, a short, bitter sound. Not really, no. No boyfriend complaining about your hours. Chiara felt heat rising to her face. No. No boyfriend. Why not? The question was direct, intimate, inappropriate. But it came from Matteo Ferrante, and he seemed to believe he had a right to every answer. I'm busy, Chiara said, which was true, but not the whole truth. Just busy? Matteo asked, and there was something sharp in his gaze. Or is there more? Chiara hesitated. She shouldn't answer. It was personal. It was beyond professional. It was dangerous. But something in the dim office, in the tiredness in his eyes, in the way he looked at her, as if he really saw her, and not just an assistant, made her speak. I'm not very good with those things, she said, and she hated how childish it sounded. What things? Relationships, intimacy, all that world. Chiara took a breath. I've always been the one too quiet, too serious, too focused on books. Men don't look at me that way. What way? Matteo's voice had become lower. The way they look at women they desire. The words came out before she could stop them. The silence that followed was so dense that Chiara heard the beating of her heart. Matteo moved, slowly, until he was a meter from her. Men are idiots, he said, and his voice had a quality she had never heard before, warm, almost gentle. If they don't see you, they're blind. Chiara looked up at him, breath short. Are you saying this to be kind? Matteo laughed, a low sound, almost incredulous. I'm never kind, Miss Rossi. Then why? Because it's the truth. He moved another step closer. Do you really think I haven't noticed you? That I haven't seen how you move, how you think, how you care for every detail? That I haven't seen you? Chiara couldn't breathe. I don't understand. I know, Matteo said, and now he was so close she could feel the heat of his body. And that's part of the problem. You have no idea how extraordinary you are. I'm not. Don't contradict me. The voice was firm but not hard. I work with hundreds of people, beautiful, sophisticated, experienced women. But none have made me stop to think. None have made me want to stay in the office just to see you for one more hour. None except you. Chiara was trembling. You shouldn't say these things. You're my boss. I work for you. This is inappropriate, Matteo completed. I know. I've broken every rule I have. But with you, it's different. You're different. He stepped back, running a hand through his hair. And if this makes you uncomfortable, if you want to leave, I'll understand. But I had to tell you. I had to let you know. Chiara remained motionless, heart beating so hard it hurt. She should say something, anything. But words wouldn't come. Good night, Miss Rossi, Matteo said, turning toward the window. It was a dismissal. Chiara turned, took 3 steps toward the door. Then she stopped. Matteo. It was the first time she used his name. He turned sharply, eyes wide. You're different too, Chiara said, voice barely a whisper. To me. Then she left, before courage abandoned her. That night, neither of them slept. The next day, everything changed, and nothing changed. On the surface, it was like always. Matteo was the impeccable CEO. Chiara, the perfect assistant. But underneath, something simmered. Every time their eyes met. Every time he passed her a document and their fingers brushed. Every time she entered his office and felt the weight of his attention on her. It was like walking on a wire suspended above an abyss, knowing one wrong step would change everything. Matteo became more attentive. Small things no one else would notice. He made sure Chiara had lunch. He told her to go home at a decent hour, even though he stayed. When a supplier spoke to her rudely on the phone, Matteo took the call and destroyed him with 3 icy sentences. When Chiara worked until midnight to prepare a presentation, the next morning she found on her desk a still warm coffee and a croissant from her favorite bakery. There was no note, but she knew. It was a dangerous dance. Professionalism hiding something wild. Chiara found herself thinking about him constantly, the way he rolled up his shirt sleeves when he concentrated, the line of his jaw, the sound of his laugh, rare but beautiful, the way he looked at her when he thought she wasn't noticing, with an intensity that took her breath away. She felt like a schoolgirl, and she hated herself for it. She was 28, not 14, but she had no experience in these things. She didn't know how to handle desire, how to interpret signals, how to behave when every cell in her body screamed toward someone she couldn't have. One Thursday afternoon, 2 weeks after that night conversation, Matteo called her into his office. Tomorrow night, there's a charity gala, he said, not looking up from documents. Important events, key partners. I need to be present. Do you want me to arrange transportation? Chiara asked, professional. No, I want you to come with me. Chiara felt her heart stop. As your assistant, Matteo finally looked up. As my date. I don't understand. It's simple, Miss Rossi. I want you to come to the gala with me, not for work, because I want you there. With me. Chiara swallowed. It's not a good idea. Probably not. People will talk. Let them talk. You're my boss. I know. This could complicate everything. I know that too. Matteo stood, walked around the desk. But I've been thinking only about you for weeks. Weeks where I fight every instinct telling me to get closer. And I'm tired of fighting. So I'm asking you, come with me. One evening. If you then decide you want only a professional relationship, I'll respect it. But give me this chance. Give us this chance. Chiara looked at him, seeing vulnerability in his eyes. something she had never seen before in Matteo Ferrante. "Okay," she whispered. "I'll come." Friday evening, Chiara stood in front of the mirror in her small apartment and didn't recognize herself. She had spent too much money on a black dress, simple but elegant, that slid over her like water. She had left her hair loose for once, light makeup that Elena from HR had helped her do, with a knowing smile that said, "I knew it." She felt exposed, vulnerable, terribly inadequate. When the doorbell rang at exactly 8 o'clock, her heart jumped into her throat. She opened the door and stopped. Matteo was there, in a black tuxedo, perfect as always. But when his eyes settled on her, something in his face melted. "Chiara," he said. And her name sounded different in his mouth. Not Miss Rossi, just Chiara. "You're beautiful," she blushed. You look good, too." Matteo smiled, a real smile. "You're trembling." "I'm nervous," Chiara admitted. "I've never done anything like this." "Anything like what?" "Go to a gala, be someone's date, wear a dress like this, everything." Matteo took a step closer. "Want to know a secret?" "What?" "I'm nervous, too." Chiara laughed, an incredulous sound. "You? Impossible. You're Matteo Ferrante. You're never afraid of anything." "With you, I'm afraid," he said, and his voice was so sincere it took her breath away. "I'm afraid of saying the wrong thing, of moving too fast, of ruining everything. Because with you, it matters. It matters more than any deal, any agreement, any victory. And that terrifies me." Chiara felt tears sting her eyes. "I don't know what to say." "Don't say anything. Just come with me, and we'll be nervous together." He offered his arm. Chiara hesitated only a second, then took it. The gala was at the Grand Hotel, an 18th century palace transformed into a temple of luxury. Crystals hung from ceilings like frozen rain. Marble shone under 1,000 lights, and everywhere there were beautiful, rich, confident people. Chiara immediately felt out of place. But then Matteo put a hand on the small of her back, a light but possessive touch, and whispered, "Breathe. You're with me. No one will dare look at you badly." And so it was. As they crossed the room, Chiara saw the looks: surprise, curiosity, some spark of jealousy. Everyone knew Matteo Ferrante. But no one had ever seen Matteo Ferrante with a woman he looked at that way, as if she were precious, as if she were important, as if she were the only person in the room. Matteo introduced her to partners, associates, rivals. He always kept a hand on her back, on her arm, like an anchor keeping her steady. And he spoke of her not as an assistant, but as someone extraordinary I've been fortunate to meet. At one point, a man in his 60s with an oily smile approached. "Ferrante, always impeccable. And who is this delightful creature?" Chiara felt Matteo stiffen. "Giuseppe, this is Chiara, and you'll speak to her with respect, or you'll leave." The tone was icy, final. Giuseppe laughed nervously and walked away. Chiara looked at Matteo. "You didn't have to." "Yes, I did," he said, eyes fixed on hers. "No one disrespects you. Ever. Not while I'm with you." After dinner, when the orchestra began to play, Matteo turned to her. "Dance with me." Chiara felt panic rising. "I don't know how to dance. I mean, I haven't danced in years. I might step on your feet, I might—" Matteo took her hand. "Then I'll guide you. Trust me." And she trusted him. She let herself be guided onto the floor, among couples moving with practiced grace. Matteo put a hand on her waist, held the other gently, and they began to move. At first, Chiara was rigid, focused on steps, terrified of making mistakes. But Matteo whispered, "Don't think. Just feel. Follow me." and she closed her eyes and followed him. And suddenly, it wasn't difficult. It was natural. Their bodies moved together as if they had done this 1,000 times. Matteo's hand on her waist was firm, sure. His scent enveloped her. The heat of his body near hers. Chiara opened her eyes and found Matteo looking at her, and the intensity in that gaze made her tremble. "You don't look at me like a boss looks at an employee," she whispered. "No," Matteo admitted. "How do you look at me then?" "The way a man looks at a woman he desires." The words hung between them, charged, dangerous. The music continued, but they had stopped moving. They were simply there, in the middle of the floor, the world spinning around, but they motionless. "Matteo," Chiara said, and her voice trembled. "I don't know what I'm doing. I have no experience in this. I don't know how." "Shh," he said, raising a hand to touch her cheek. "I know." "You know?" "I know you've never had a serious boyfriend. I know you've been so focused on your dreams, your goals, that you haven't had time for anything else. I know you feel inadequate, that you think you don't know how. I see it in you every time someone looks at you with interest. You withdraw. You hide." Chiara felt tears rising. "Then why do you want to be with me? I'm inexperienced, awkward. I don't know how." "Because you're authentic," Matteo said, and his voice was full of emotion. "Because you don't pretend. Because when you blush, it's real. When you smile, it's genuine. When you care, I feel it. You're the first real thing that's happened to me in years. But I don't know how to be in a relationship. I've never been—" She stopped, unable to say the words. Matteo looked at her, understanding. "You've never been kissed," he said. Not as a question, but as a fact. Chiara closed her eyes, shame burning her. "No." "Chiara, look at me." She obeyed, expecting pity, amusement, disgust. Instead, she saw tenderness. "Never be ashamed of this," Matteo said firmly. "Never. Understand? But I'm 28 and you're precious. You've been protected, reserved, waiting for the right person. There's no shame in this, only beauty." Chiara felt a tear slip. "I don't know what to do." Matteo wiped it away with his thumb. "Let me be your first," he said, voice hoarse. "Let me be the first to kiss you, the first to show you how desirable you are, the first to make you feel loved. Let me be your first everything." "Why would you do this?" Chiara whispered. "Because you deserve someone who treats you like the treasure you are. And because I want it to be me. I want to be the only one." The world stopped. Then Chiara nodded, barely, and Matteo smiled. A smile full of promises. That night, Matteo didn't kiss her. He took her home, walked with her to the door, and when Chiara turned to him, waiting, hoping, fearing, he only took her hand and kissed it delicately. "Not tonight," he said, seeing the confusion in her eyes. "When I kiss you, Chiara, I want you to be certain. I want you to have no doubts. I want it to be perfect for you." "It's already perfect," she whispered. Matteo smiled, touching her cheek. "Not yet. But it will be. I promise." And then he left, leaving her on the threshold with her heart racing and the certainty that she was falling in love with Matteo Ferrante. The following days were sweet torture. In the office, everything was professional. But there were moments, looks that lasted too long, shared smiles when no one was watching. The way Matteo found excuses to touch her, a touch on the shoulder, a hand on her back. And there were the messages. After the gala, Matteo had taken her personal number, and now he wrote to her. Not work things, real things. "Good morning" at 6 in the morning. "How are you?" in the afternoon. "I'm thinking about you" in the evening. They were simple, almost banal. But for Chiara, they were everything. No one had ever made her feel so seen, so present in someone's thoughts. One Wednesday afternoon, Matteo called her into his office. He had a strange expression, almost nervous. "I have a meeting in Florence on Friday," he said. "I need to stay the weekend. I thought—" "Do you want to come with me?" Chiara blinked. "To Florence?" "Separate rooms," he added quickly. "No pressure. Just time together. Away from here. Away from everyone's eyes. A chance to really get to know each other." Chiara hesitated. It was a huge step. But when she looked at Matteo, she saw hope in his eyes, vulnerability. "Yes," she said. "I want to come." The train ride was surreal. Sitting in first class, Florence approaching outside the windows, Matteo holding her hand, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. They talked about everything, about Chiara's family, simple, honest parents who didn't understand her passion for literature but supported her anyway. About Matteo's childhood, materially rich but poor in affection, parents too busy building empires to notice their son. "Is that why you work so hard?" Chiara asked. "To prove something?" "At first, yes," Matteo admitted. "I wanted their recognition. But they died 5 years ago. Plane crash. And I realized I had spent my whole life seeking approval from people who weren't capable of giving it." "I'm sorry," Chiara whispered. Matteo squeezed her hand. "It's past. But it left me with a huge company and no one to share successes with. All victories seemed empty because there was no one who really cared. Until you came. The hotel in Florence was elegant, view of the Arno, separate rooms as promised. But that evening they dined together in a small restaurant near Ponte Vecchio. Chiara wore a simple dress, dark blue, and Matteo couldn't stop looking at her. "What?" she asked, blushing under his gaze. "You're beautiful in candlelight," he said. "You should see yourself. Your eyes sparkle." "You're flirting with me, Mr. Ferrante." "Absolutely, Miss Rossi." They laughed, and it was so easy, so natural. After dinner, they walked along the river. The night was cool, starry, perfect. Florence sparkled around them like a fairy city. At one point, Chiara trembled slightly, and Matteo took off his jacket to put it on her shoulders. The gesture, simple, ancient, melted her. "Thank you," she said. "For this. For everything. For seeing me when no one did." "Chiara," Matteo said, stopping. "I need to tell you something." She turned to him, heart accelerating. "What?" "I know this is fast. I know it's complicated. I know I'm your boss and there's a power imbalance, and I should be more cautious. But I don't care anymore." He took her hands. "I've fallen in love with you. Completely. Irrevocably. And I know you have no experience, that you're scared, that you don't know how to handle this. But I want you to know I'll wait. As long as it takes. There's no rush. We'll go at your pace, always." Chiara felt tears sliding. "Matteo, you don't have to say anything," he said. "I just wanted you to know." "No," Chiara said, voice firm despite the tears. "I want to say it. I've fallen in love with you too. I don't know when it happened. Maybe that first day, when you hired me even though I wasn't qualified. Maybe when you destroyed that supplier who disrespected me. Maybe that evening in the office when you said I was extraordinary. But it happened. And I'm terrified, but also certain. Certain of you. Certain of us." Matteo looked at her as if she were a miracle. "Can I kiss you now?" he asked, voice hoarse. Chiara nodded, unable to speak. Matteo approached slowly, giving her time to withdraw if she wanted. But Chiara didn't withdraw. She stayed there, trembling but firm. As he raised his hands to hold her face, "Tell me if you want me to stop," he whispered, his breath warm on her skin. "Don't stop," Chiara said. And then Matteo kissed her. It was sweet, incredibly sweet. Lips barely touching, exploratory, patient. Chiara felt a wave of sensation go through her, something she had never felt, something warm and liquid and perfect. She opened her lips slightly, instinctively, and Matteo deepened the kiss, but always gentle, always controlled. His hands were steady on her face, anchoring while she got lost. When they finally separated, both were breathing hard. "Wow," Chiara whispered. Matteo laughed, a sound full of joy. Wow is right. It was incredible. For you or for me? For both, I hope. Absolutely for both, Matteo said, kissing her again, deeper this time. They spent hours like that, kissing under the stars, learning each other's rhythm, discovering what made her moan, what made him sigh. Matteo was patient, always patient, letting Chiara explore at her pace. And when his hands moved from her waist to her back, lingering, asking permission silently, Chiara pressed closer, saying yes with her body. "We should go back to the hotel," Matteo finally said, voice tense, "before I lose control here on the street." Chiara laughed, feeling powerful for the first time. "Okay," she said. At the hotel, Matteo walked her to her door. "Good night," he said, kissing her one more time. "See you tomorrow." "Matteo," Chiara said before he could leave. "Thank you." "For what?" "For being patient, for making it perfect, for making me feel special." Matteo caressed her cheek. "You are special, Chiara. The most special woman I've ever known. And this is just the first night. There will be many more. I promise." And he kept his promise. Saturday in Florence was magical. They visited the Uffizi hand in hand, Chiara explaining every painting with passion, Matteo watching her more than the paintings. They had lunch at a hidden trattoria, where the owner called them lovers, and served them the best wine in the house. In the afternoon, they got lost in medieval streets, kissing in hidden corners, laughing like teenagers. "I didn't know you were capable of laughing like this," Chiara said, leaning against his chest as they watched the sunset from Piazzale Michelangelo. "I wasn't," Matteo replied, kissing her head. "Before you." That evening they dined late, and when Matteo walked her back to her door, Chiara felt something change inside her. She didn't want him to leave. She didn't want to sleep alone. She wanted more. "Matteo," she said before he could go. "Stay." He stopped, turned. "Chiara, you don't have to." "I know," she said, voice firm. "But I want to. I want you to stay. I want to be with you. Really." Matteo looked at her, searching for uncertainty. "Are you sure?" "There's no rush. We can wait as long as you want." "I'm sure," Chiara said. "I'm terrified, but I'm sure. And I want it to be with you. I want you to be my first, in everything." Matteo entered, closing the door behind him. The room was dim, only the city light filtering through the curtains. "Come here," Matteo said gently. Chiara approached, trembling. Matteo took her face in his hands. "Listen to me carefully. We'll go at your pace. If you want to stop at any moment, for any reason, we will. No questions, no judgment. Understand?" Chiara nodded. "And one more thing. This isn't just sex. Not for me. This is making love. With the woman I'm in love with. It's important you know that." "I know," Chiara whispered. "It's important to me, too." Matteo kissed her, slowly, deeply, and Chiara felt tension melt from her body. His hands moved to the zipper of her dress, but he stopped. "May I?" "Yes." The dress fell in a whisper of fabric. Chiara wore simple lingerie, nothing special, and felt a wave of embarrassment. But when she looked at Matteo, she saw only admiration. "You're perfect," he said, voice rough. "Absolutely perfect." He took her hand and guided her to the bed. They sat on the edge, and Matteo continued to kiss her, hands gently exploring her back, arms always asking permission, always attentive to her reactions. Chiara felt herself melting under his touch. He was gentle, but there was an underlying passion that made her tremble. When his lips moved from her face to her neck, Chiara moaned, a sound she didn't know she could make. "Do you like it?" Matteo whispered against her skin. "Yes," she gasped. "Very much." Matteo smiled against her neck and continued, discovering every sensitive spot, every place that made her sigh. He removed her lingerie with reverence, and Chiara, instead of covering herself as she had always imagined, let herself be looked at. Because the way Matteo looked at her made her feel beautiful. He had her lie down and removed his clothes, revealing a body that was a work of art. Muscular but elegant, tanned skin, every line perfect. He lay beside her, not on top, not crushing her, giving her space. "Tell me what you feel," he said, fingers slowly tracing her arm. "Nervous," Chiara admitted, "but also excited and safe. With you, I feel safe." "Good," Matteo said, "because you are safe. Always." His hands began a slow journey, exploring every curve, every angle, learning her body. When he reached her breasts, he hesitated, asking with his eyes. Chiara nodded, and when he touched her, when his mouth followed his hands, Chiara felt waves of pleasure she had never imagined. "Matteo," she moaned, hands in his hair. "Are you okay?" he asked, looking up. "Yes." "Don't stop, please, don't stop." He smiled and continued his exploration, moving lower, always slowly, always attentive. When his fingers reached her intimacy, Chiara stiffened. "Hey," Matteo said gently, stopping. "Look at me." She opened her eyes, meeting his. "You're tense." "Breathe for me. Trust me." Chiara breathed, focusing on his eyes, his voice. And when he touched her again, with infinite delicacy, pleasure overwhelmed her. "Oh God," she gasped. "Is this normal? Is it always like this?" Matteo laughed softly. "It should be. And it gets even better." And he was right. His fingers moved with skill, finding rhythms that made her tremble, made her moan, made her forget every embarrassment. And when his mouth joined his fingers, Chiara thought she would go crazy. "Matteo, something's happening. I don't know. I know, sweetheart. Let go. I've got you." And she did. She let herself go to the wave that overwhelmed her, crying his name, gripping the sheets, lost in sensations beyond any imagination. When she came back to herself, Matteo was beside her, holding her, kissing her forehead. That was. "I have no words," Chiara whispered. "You were incredible," Matteo said. "So responsive, so beautiful." Chiara looked at him, seeing the desire in his eyes, the tension in his body. "And you?" she asked. "Do you want... can we..." "Only if you're ready," Matteo said. "There's no rush." "I want to," Chiara said. "I want to feel you. I want to be complete with you." Matteo closed his eyes, as if praying for control. "Okay, but we'll go very slowly. You tell me if it hurts. Promise?" "I promise." Matteo positioned himself above her, the weight of his body supported by his arms so as not to crush her. He kissed her deeply as he aligned himself, and then, slowly, incredibly slowly, began to enter. Chiara felt pressure, a slight sting, then a sensation of fullness. "Are you okay?" Matteo asked, forehead sweating from the effort of holding back. "Yes, continue." He moved deeper, stopping often, giving her time to adjust. When he was completely inside, he remained still. Chiara, look at me. She opened her eyes. You're mine now, Matteo said, voice intense, and I'm yours. Completely. Completely, Chiara repeated, and then he began to move. Slowly at first, long, deep strokes that made her close her eyes in pleasure. Then faster as she got used to it, as her body welcomed him, as moans filled the room. You're perfect, Matteo said. So perfect. So tight. So mine. Chiara felt another wave building, more powerful than the first. Matteo, again. It's happening again. Let go, love. Come for me. And she did, screaming his name, squeezing him inside her. Matteo followed moments later, burying his face in her neck, his body trembling as he let go. They stayed like that for long moments, breathing together, bodies united, hearts beating in unison. Then Matteo withdrew gently, pulled her into his arms, and kissed her tenderly. How are you? He asked. I have no words, Chiara said. It was more than I ever imagined. For me too, Matteo said. You were incredible, so brave, so open. I love you so much. I love you too, Chiara whispered. They fell asleep like that, intertwined, and for the first time in years, neither felt alone. The next morning, Chiara woke up in Matteo's arms. He was already awake, watching her with a smile. Good morning, he said. Good morning, she replied, blushing. Did you sleep well? Better than in my entire life, Chiara said. You? The same. They kissed. Lazy. Sweet morning kisses that turned into something deeper, more urgent. And this time, when they made love, it was different. More confident. Bolder. Chiara explored Matteo's body with her hands, with her mouth, discovering what he liked, what made him moan. And Matteo guided her, encouraged her, loved her, with a passion that took her breath away. We could stay in bed all day, Chiara said afterward, lying on his chest. I'm the CEO. I can do what I want, Matteo said, laughing, and I want to stay here with you. But of course they had to return to Milan, return to reality, to work, to complications. But everything was different now. Chiara was no longer just the assistant. She was Matteo's woman, and he no longer hid his feelings. On Monday, when they arrived at the office separately to avoid gossip, Matteo called her into his office before she could settle at her desk. He closed the door, pushed her gently against it, and kissed her hungrily. I missed you, he said against her lips. I've been gone only 20 minutes, Chiara laughed. Too long. He kissed her again, then forced himself to let her go. We need to talk about how to handle this. Chiara nodded, becoming serious. I know. I don't want people to think I got the job for other reasons. They won't think that, Matteo said firmly, because you're the best assistant I've ever had. But you're right. We need to be professional here. In the office, we're boss and assistant. Outside, we're us. I can do that, Chiara said. Me too. But it won't be easy. Every time I look at you, I want to touch you. Matteo, Chiara said, blushing. You need to stop saying things like that. Why? Because it makes it very difficult to concentrate on work. He laughed, a warm sound, full of affection. Okay, I'll be professional. But after office hours, you're all mine. All yours, Chiara confirmed. The following days were a complicated dance. In the office, they were impeccable. No inappropriate touching, no looks too long. But after 5 o'clock, everything changed. Matteo invited Chiara to dinner. He took her to his place, an incredible penthouse with a view of all Milan. They made love on his couch, in his bed, once against the panoramic window, Chiara laughing between kisses. Anyone could see us, she had said. Let them watch, Matteo had replied. They talked for hours, about everything, about their dreams, their fears. Matteo confessed he had always thought he wasn't capable of real love, that his work had consumed everything. But then you came, he said, fingers intertwined with hers. And you showed me there's more. That I can have success and love. That I don't have to choose. You never have to choose, Chiara said. I want your success. I want to see you conquer the world. But I also want to be there when you come home. 3 months passed like that. The best 3 months of Chiara's life. She practically moved into Matteo's penthouse, though she kept her apartment on principle. Matteo woke her every morning with kisses. They had breakfast together, went to work together, pretended to be only professional, then came home and collapsed into each other's arms. But not everything was easy. There were the whispers. Rumors that Chiara had seduced the boss, whispered comments, looks of disapproval. One evening, Chiara came home from the office in tears. Matteo found her on the couch, face hidden in her hands. What happened? He asked, alarmed. Elena, Chiara said between sobs. From HR. She said everyone knows. That I'm just a mistress who got lucky. That I didn't get the job on my own merit. That I'm a... She stopped, unable to say the word. Matteo felt rage explode inside him. She said what? His voice was ice. It doesn't matter, Chiara said. She's right. I'm not. No, Matteo said forcefully. She's not right. You got that job because you're brilliant. We fell in love after. There's nothing wrong with that. But people think, who cares what people think? Matteo knelt in front of her. Chiara, look at me. She raised her eyes full of tears. You're the most capable, most dedicated person who's ever worked for me. And you're also the woman I'm in love with. These two things can coexist. And anyone who has a problem with this can talk to me. Matteo, you can't fire people for this. I can do what I want. It's my company. But it's not fair. You know what's not fair, Matteo said, voice trembling with emotion. It's not fair that you have to suffer for loving me. It's not fair that people judge without knowing. It's not fair that you cry because of jealous idiots. Chiara wiped her tears. I don't want to be a burden to you. A burden? Matteo laughed, incredulous. Chiara, you're the best thing that ever happened to me. You're not a burden. You're my salvation. Really? Really? He pulled her into his arms, holding her tight. And tomorrow morning I'll talk to Elena, and to anyone else who has problems. You don't have to. Yes, I do. No one hurts you. Ever. And he kept his word. The next day, he called a meeting with all the staff. He stood in front of everyone, imposing, the ruthless CEO everyone feared. I want to make one thing clear, he said, voice cold. Chiara Rossi is my personal assistant because she's excellent at her job. She's also the woman I'm building a relationship with. These two things are not connected. Anyone who has problems with this can come talk to me directly, or can look for work elsewhere. Am I clear? Total silence. I said, am I clear? Yes, Mr. Ferrante, everyone murmured. Good. Get back to work. Afterward, Chiara found him in his office. You didn't have to do that, she said. But there was gratitude in her eyes. Yes, I did, Matteo said, and I'd do it again. Always. Chiara kissed him, deeply, with all the love she felt. After that meeting, the gossip calmed down. It didn't disappear, but no one dared say anything openly. And Chiara, slowly, began to believe she deserved what she had. But there was still something that tormented her, a hidden fear. She talked about it with Matteo one evening, as they lay in bed, her fingers drawing patterns on his chest. Can I ask you something? She said. Anything. You've had many women before me, right? Matteo stiffened slightly. Why do you want to know? Because I'm curious, and because I'm afraid. Afraid of what? That I'm not enough, that you'll get tired of me, that one day you'll wake up and realize you want someone with more experience, someone who knows how. Stop, Matteo said, turning to look at her. Look at me, Chiara. She obeyed, seeing the intensity in his eyes. Yes, I've had other women. Many. But you know what? What? I don't remember any of their names. I don't remember their faces, because they never meant anything. They were distractions, ways to fill the void. He took Chiara's face in his hands. But you're different. You're everything. Every moment with you counts. Every kiss, every touch, every conversation. You changed me in ways I didn't think possible. But I'm still so inexperienced, Chiara said. I don't know how to do all the things they— And I like you exactly like this, Matteo said firmly. You know why? Why? Because everything we do together is authentic. It's real. You're not performing. You're not trying to impress me. You're just you, and you are more than enough. You're perfect. Chiara felt tears rising. How do you always say the right things? Because they're true, Matteo said, and because I love you, and I want you to understand how precious you are to me. He kissed her, slowly, deeply, and then made love to her with a tenderness that made her cry, but this time from happiness. Afterward, as they were wrapped in sheets, Matteo said something that changed everything. Chiara, I want you to come live with me, officially, not just spending nights. I want this to be our home. Chiara pulled herself up, looking at him. Really? Really? I want to wake up with you every morning. I want to fall asleep with you every evening. I want to build a life together. What do you say? Chiara smiled, a huge smile, full of joy. Yes. 100 times. Yes. The move was simple. Chiara didn't have many things, mostly books. Matteo cleared out an entire room to create a personal library for her. So you'll have your space, he said. A place to read, write, think. Chiara looked at the room, the empty shelves waiting for her books, the window with a view of the city, the comfortable armchair in the corner. It's perfect, she whispered. Like you, Matteo said, hugging her from behind. Living together was a revelation. Chiara discovered that Matteo sang in the shower terribly, that he couldn't cook anything except scrambled eggs, that he read every night before sleeping, biographies of entrepreneurs and economic history, that he had a sweet side he hid from the world, but showed her. Matteo discovered that Chiara talked in her sleep, saying nonsensical things that made him laugh, that she ate chocolate when stressed, that she had the habit of leaving half-drunk cups of tea all over the house, that when she wrote, she bit her pen, completely focused. What are you writing? He asked one evening, finding her in the library. Chiara jumped, quickly closing the notebook. Nothing. Just thoughts. Can I read them? No, Chiara said too quickly. Matteo raised an eyebrow. Why not? Because they're private and embarrassing. Embarrassing how? Chiara blushed. I write stories, short stories, romantic things. Matteo smiled, sitting beside her. Do you write about us? Chiara's blush intensified. Sometimes. Can I read one? I promise not to laugh. Matteo, no, they're terrible. Let me judge. Chiara hesitated. Then, with trembling hands, opened the notebook and found a short story. She handed it to Matteo, looking away while he read. The silence stretched. Then Matteo said, Chiara, I told you they're terrible. No, he said, voice strange. They're beautiful. She turned, surprised. Really? Really. You have incredible talent. This is touching, deep, real. Matteo looked at her. Why don't you do something with this? What should I do? Publish. Write professionally. This is too good to stay hidden in a notebook. Chiara shook her head. It's just a hobby. I'm not good enough. Chiara Rossi, Matteo said, taking her hands. When will you learn to see yourself as I see you? How do you see me? As someone extraordinarily talented. Someone who has so much to give the world. Someone who deserves to pursue their dreams. But I already have a job. I work for you. What if you didn't? Matteo asked. Chiara looked at him, confused. What? What if you decided to dedicate yourself to writing full-time? I'd support you. Financially, emotionally, in every way. I couldn't, Chiara said immediately. I couldn't depend on you like that. Why not? Because I need to be independent. I need to know I can support myself. Matteo nodded, understanding. Okay. But at least think about it. You have a gift, Chiara. It would be a shame to waste it. She kissed him, grateful for his support, but still uncertain. In the following months, though, something changed. Chiara began writing more, evenings after work, weekends. Stories took shape, characters came alive, worlds were created. And Matteo was always there, encouraging her, reading every word, celebrating every progress. One day, without telling her, he sent one of her stories to a publisher he knew. 2 weeks later, the publisher called. He wanted to publish not just that story, but an entire collection. When Matteo told her, Chiara looked at him incredulously. You did what? I sent your work, and he liked it. A lot. But you had no right? I know, Matteo said, and I apologize if I overstepped. But Chiara, you're too talented to stay hidden. The world needs to read your words. Chiara didn't know whether to be angry or happy. In the end, happiness won. She accepted the publisher's offer, continuing to work for Matteo, but dedicating more and more time to writing. Her first book came out 6 months later. Whispers in the Silence, a collection of romantic stories about people who find love when they least expect it, was an immediate success. Reviews were enthusiastic. Readers wrote letters saying how much the stories had touched them. And Chiara, for the first time in her life, felt seen. Not as someone's assistant, not as someone's girlfriend, but as herself, as a writer, as an artist, as a person with something important to say. The day of the book launch, Matteo was in the front row. He applauded louder than anyone. When Chiara spoke about her creative process, her inspirations, she mentioned someone special who taught me to believe in myself. And she looked at Matteo, and he smiled, and everyone in the room could see the love between them. After the event at home, Matteo opened champagne. To my brilliant writer, he toasted. To the person who taught me to take risks, Chiara responded. They drank. Then Matteo became serious. Chiara, there's something I've wanted to ask you for months. What? Wait here. He disappeared into the bedroom, came back with a small velvet box. Chiara's heart stopped. Matteo knelt in front of her, opening the box to reveal a ring. Not huge, not vulgar, but exquisite. A diamond surrounded by blue sapphires. Chiara Rossi, Matteo said, and his voice trembled. You came into my life when I was convinced love didn't exist for me. You showed me I could be more than my work, more than my successes, more than my fears. You loved me when I didn't know I deserved it. You changed me, completely, irrevocably. He took a breath. I can't imagine a future without you. I don't want to live a day without waking up next to you. So I'm asking you, will you marry me? Will you be my wife, my partner, my life? Chiara was crying, tears flowing freely. Yes, she said. Yes, yes, 1,000 times. Yes. Matteo slipped the ring onto her finger, then stood and kissed her. And it was perfect. Everything was perfect. They planned the wedding for the following spring, an intimate ceremony, only close people, at a villa on Lake Como. On the wedding day, Kiara stood in front of the mirror in a simple but stunning dress, and she almost couldn't believe this was her life. "You're beautiful," her mother said, adjusting her veil. "Thank you, Mom." "Are you happy?" her mother asked. "More than I ever thought possible," Kiara replied. Her mother smiled, tears in her eyes. "I remember when you were little. So quiet, always with your nose in books. I was worried you'd never find someone, but then you found him, and he found you, and it's perfect." The ceremony was magical. Matteo cried when he saw her walk down the aisle. His vows were simple but powerful. "I promise to love you every day. I promise to support you in every dream. I promise to be your safe harbor. I promise to always make you feel seen, heard, loved." Kiara could barely speak through tears, but she said, "I promise to love you with all my heart. I promise to believe in you as you believe in me. I promise to build a life together, full of love, laughter, and endless stories. I promise to be yours, always." When the priest said, "You may kiss," Matteo pulled her to him and kissed her with such passion that guests applauded and laughed. That night in the bridal suite, they made love with tenderness and passion, celebrating not just their marriage, but the entire journey that brought them there. "I love you, Mrs. Ferrante," Matteo whispered. "I love you, my husband," Kiara replied, and as they fell asleep in each other's arms, both knew they had found something many search for their whole lives and never find. True love, unconditional, eternal. The following year was full of changes. Kiara's second book came out and was even more successful than the first. She left her job as assistant to dedicate herself to writing full-time, though she still consulted with Matteo on important business decisions. Matteo launched a new division of the company, dedicated to supporting young entrepreneurs, especially women, inspired by Kiara and her determination. They bought a country house in Tuscany, a place to go on weekends to escape the city, to write, to relax, to simply be. And one day, 3 years after their meeting, Kiara took a pregnancy test. It was positive. Kiara looked at the test, heart beating so hard it echoed in her ears. Pregnant. She was carrying a life inside her, a life created with Matteo. The joy was immediate, overwhelming, but also the fear. She wasn't sure she was ready. She wasn't sure she was enough. That evening, when Matteo came home, she was sitting on the couch, the test clutched in her hand. "Kiara," he said, seeing her expression. "What's wrong?" She looked up, tears already falling. "I'm pregnant." Matteo stopped. For a long moment he said nothing. Then a huge smile spread across his face. "Really?" "Really," Kiara confirmed. Matteo rushed to her, fell to his knees, held her tight. "We're having a baby," he said, voice full of wonder. "We're having a baby. Are you scared?" Kiara asked. "Terrified," Matteo admitted, "but also happier than I've ever been." "Me too," Kiara whispered. Matteo took her face in his hands. "We'll be fantastic parents. Together." "How can you be so sure?" "Because I love you. And we'll love this baby. And that's all we need." Kiara laughed through tears. "When you say it like that, it sounds simple." "Maybe it is," Matteo said. "Maybe we've complicated everything for so long that we've forgotten the best things are simple. Love. Family. Home." He kissed her stomach, still flat. "Hello, little one. I'm your father. And I'm so eager to meet you." The next 9 months were a roller coaster. Kiara had terrible morning sickness for the first 3 months. Matteo took care of her, bringing her crackers in bed, holding her hair when she vomited, whispering words of comfort. When her stomach began to grow, Matteo was fascinated. He spent hours with his hands on her belly, waiting to feel kicks. The first time the baby moved, Matteo cried. "Did you feel it?" Chiara said, laughing. "It's real. It's really in there." "It's real," Matteo confirmed, kissing her belly again. "And it will love us as much as we love it. Him or her." They discovered they were expecting a girl at 6 months. They decided to call her Sophia, which means wisdom. "Because I want her to grow up knowing how precious she is," Chiara said. "I want her to never doubt her worth, like I did." "She won't," Matteo promised, "because she'll have you as a mother, and you'll teach her everything." The birth was long, difficult. Chiara screamed, cried, prayed for it to end. Matteo was there for every moment, holding her hand, wiping her sweat, telling her how strong she was, how brave. And when Sophia finally arrived, small, perfect, with a cry that filled the room, both cried. The nurse placed the baby on Chiara's chest, and she looked at her in wonder. "Hello, little one," she whispered. "I'm your mom." Matteo leaned down, kissing first Chiara, then Sophia. "You're so beautiful," he said, voice broken. "Just like your mother." The first months with Sophia were chaotic. Sleepless nights, endless diapers, crying that seemed never to end. But there were also moments of pure magic. The way Sophia looked at Chiara when nursing, as if she were the entire universe. The way she calmed instantly when Matteo picked her up. Her first smile at 6 weeks that melted them. One day, Chiara was sitting in the nursery, Sophia asleep in her arms, and Matteo entered. "May I?" he asked, indicating the rocking chair beside her. "Of course." They sat in silence for a moment, watching their daughter sleep. Then Matteo said, "You know what I'm thinking?" "What?" "About the day you first entered my office. So nervous, so determined. I had 16 assistants before you. They all left. But you stayed." "I was too stubborn to leave," Chiara said, smiling. "No," Matteo said. "You were too special, and I was lucky enough to see it." He took her hand. "If someone had told me then that 3 years later we'd have a daughter together, I wouldn't have believed it. But here we are." "Here we are," Chiara repeated. "Do you ever think about how it would have gone if you hadn't hired me?" Chiara asked. "All the time," Matteo admitted. "And it terrifies me, because without you, I'd still be that cold, empty, lonely man. I'd never have known love. I'd never have known true happiness. I wouldn't have this beautiful family." Sophia moved in her sleep, a small sigh escaping her lips. "I want her to grow up knowing these things," Chiara said. "I want her to know she's loved, that she's precious, that she can be whatever she wants to be." "She'll know," Matteo promised, "because we'll show her every day." The years passed. Sophia grew, from infant to child. She was intelligent, curious, with her father's gray eyes and her mother's dark hair. She loved books like Chiara, had Matteo's determination. Chiara's second book after Sophia was called Small Miracles, a collection of stories about motherhood, love, family. It was her most personal work, and also the most beloved. Matteo continued to build his empire, but now with balance. He left the office at 6 to have dinner with family. He didn't work on weekends. He put Chiara and Sophia before every deal. And one day, when Sophia was 4 years old, she asked, "Dad, how did you meet Mom?" They were at dinner, all three around the table, and the question caught them off guard. Matteo looked at Chiara, smiling. "Your mother came to my office for an interview," he began. "She was the most nervous person I'd ever seen, but also the most determined." And Dad was very serious, Chiara added. Very scary. Were you scared of Dad? Sophia asked, incredulous. At first, yes, Chiara admitted. But then I discovered that under all that control was a kind heart, and I fell in love with him. And I fell in love with your mother, Matteo said, because she showed me how to be happy, how to live, not just work, how to love. Sophia thought about it. So, you love each other a lot? Very much, they said in unison. Good, Sophia said decisively, because when I grow up, I want to find someone who loves me like you love each other. Chiara felt tears rising. You will, sweetheart. I promise. That night, after putting Sophia to bed, Chiara and Matteo stood on the balcony of their penthouse, looking at the city. Do you have any regrets? Chiara asked. About what? About us. About how it went. Boss and assistant. It's not exactly conventional. Matteo pulled her into his arms. Not a single regret. You? Not one. You know what I think, Matteo said. What? I think we were meant to meet. That it didn't matter how, it would have happened. Because some people are made to be together. Chiara laughed. You're becoming romantic in your old age. I'm becoming honest, Matteo corrected. You changed me, Chiara, in every way possible. You made me better. I didn't change you, Chiara said. I just helped you become who you always were, the man you were meant to be. Matteo kissed her, slowly, deeply. I love you, he said. Forever. Forever, Chiara confirmed. And as they stood there, embraced under the stars, both knew they had found something rare. Not just love, but partnership. Not just passion, but friendship. Not just a relationship, but a home. Chiara had started her journey with Matteo as a woman who had never been kissed, who didn't believe she was worthy of love, who hid behind books and insecurities. But Matteo had shown her her beauty, her worth, her strength. And in return, Chiara had shown Matteo that there was more to life than success, that love was possible, that vulnerability was strength. Together, they had built something beautiful, a family, a future, a life. And perhaps this is the most important truth. You don't need to be perfect to be loved. You don't need experience to deserve happiness. You just need to find someone who sees who you really are. And when you do, everything else follows. 10 years passed. Sophia was now a 14-year-old girl, brilliant and determined. She had inherited her mother's love of literature and her father's business acumen. Chiara had published 8 books, all bestsellers. She had become one of Italy's most beloved authors, invited to literary festivals, interviewed by magazines, respected in her field. Matteo had expanded his company internationally, but had also created a foundation to support women entrepreneurs, inspired by Chiara and the determination he had seen in her years before. But despite all the success, fame, recognition, what mattered most was still them. Their family. Their love. One evening, for their wedding anniversary, Matteo organized a surprise. He took Chiara and Sophia to Florence, the same city where they had spent their first weekend together, where they had fallen completely in love. Dad, why Florence? Sophia asked, as they walked along the Arno. Because this is where I kissed your mother for the first time, Matteo said, smiling at Chiara. This is where everything really began. That's so romantic, Sophia said, with the melodramatic tone typical of teenagers. But she was smiling. They dined at the same restaurant where they had dined that first evening. Sophia chatted about school, her friends, the boy she liked. What's his name? Matteo asked, immediately in protective father mode. Dad, relax, Sophia laughed. His name is Marco. He's kind, intelligent. He makes me laugh. Have we met him? Chiara asked. Not yet. But you can meet him if you want. I know you'll want to interrogate him anyway." "Absolutely," Matteo said, making both Chiara and Sophia laugh. "But seriously," Sophia continued, becoming serious, "I want to find what you have. That love you see in your eyes when you look at each other. The kind that makes everything seem possible." Chiara took her daughter's hand. "You will, sweetheart, when the time is right, with the right person." "How did you know Dad was the right one?" Sophia asked. Chiara looked at Matteo, memories returning. "Because he made me feel safe to be myself. I didn't have to pretend. I didn't have to be different. I could be vulnerable, insecure, imperfect. And he loved me anyway." "Not anyway," Matteo corrected. "For that. I loved you for every part of you. The insecurities, the fears, the doubts. Because they were what made you real." Sophia listened, absorbed. "I want Marco to make me feel like that." "Then make sure he does," Matteo said firmly. "Don't settle for less. You deserve someone who sees you, who appreciates you, who loves you completely. Never settle for less." "I promise," Sophia said. After dinner, they walked to Piazzale Michelangelo, the same place where they had watched the sunset years before. The view was still breathtaking, Florence spreading below them like a carpet of lights. "You know," Sophia said, "my friends think you're weird." "Weird how?" Chiara asked, surprised. "Because you're still so in love. Their parents are together but don't seem happy. They don't look at each other like you do. They don't touch, don't laugh together. It's like they're roommates, not partners." "We're sorry for them," Matteo said. "But it doesn't have to be like that." "I know," Sophia said. "You've shown me, and I'm grateful. Because now I know what to look for. I know what love should be like." She turned to them. "So thank you for loving each other so well, for showing me it's possible." Chiara and Matteo looked at each other, both with tears in their eyes. "That's the best thing anyone has ever said to us," Chiara whispered. That night, after Sophia had gone to sleep in her hotel room, Chiara and Matteo stood on the balcony of their suite. "We did a good job," Matteo said. "With her. She understands." "We did an excellent job," Chiara confirmed. "She's smart, kind, knows what she wants. She's stronger than I was at her age." "She's like you," Matteo said. "She has your determination, your heart, your ability to see good in people." "And she has your courage," Chiara said. "Your determination, your refusal to settle." They kissed, slowly, and it was like the first kiss, and also different. Deeper, richer, full of years of shared history. "I still love you," Matteo said. "After all this time, I'm still surprised by how much I love you." "Me too," Chiara said. "Sometimes I look back at who I was when I met you. So scared, so insecure, and I wonder how I got here." "You got here because you were always strong," Matteo said. "You just didn't know it. I just helped reveal it." "No," Chiara said. "You helped me become it." There's a difference. They returned to Milan the next day. Life continued, as always, but now with a deeper awareness of how lucky they were. Not everyone found what they had found. Not everyone had the chance to grow with someone, to build a life together, to love each other through changes and challenges. Chiara continued to write. Her 9th book, still, was about lasting love, partnerships that survive time. It was her love letter to Matteo, disguised as a novel. When it came out, Matteo read it in one weekend. The last page made him cry. "It's us," he said, looking at Chiara. "Every word is us." "I know," she said. "I wanted to capture it. I wanted the world to know that true love exists, that it lasts, that it's worth fighting for." Matteo pulled her into his arms. "I'm so lucky to have you." "No," Chiara said. "We're lucky to have found each other." And as they stood there, embraced in their home, with Sophia studying in her room, with years of memories behind them and years of possibilities ahead. Both knew they had found what many search for, but few find. Love that lasts. Love that grows. Love that transforms. Chiara thought about that 28-year-old girl who had entered Matteo's office, trembling and insecure, convinced she wasn't worthy of love. That girl had never been kissed, had never felt passion, had never believed someone could really see her. But then she had met a man who had seen her, who had seen beyond the insecurities, beyond the fear, beyond the walls she had built, who had loved her not despite who she was, but precisely for who she was. And in that love, she had found herself. She had found her voice, her courage, her strength. She had become the woman she was always meant to be. And Matteo, the man who thought love was for others, that his heart was too cold, his work too important, had discovered he was wrong, that he could have success and love, that he could be ruthless in business and gentle at home, that he could be strong and vulnerable. Together they had built something beautiful, not perfect, because nothing is perfect, but real, honest, lasting. And perhaps this is the most important lesson. You don't have to be perfect to deserve love. You don't have to have all the answers, all the experience, all the confidence. You just have to be willing to be seen. And when you find someone who really sees you, who loves you for who you are, who stays with you through everything, then you've found something precious, something to protect, to cultivate, to celebrate every day. Chiara rested her head on Matteo's chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart. "What are you thinking?" he asked. "I'm thinking," she said, "that I had never been kissed until you, and that every kiss since then has been perfect, because it comes from you." Matteo smiled, kissing her head. "And I'm thinking that I said I wanted to be your first everything, and I'm grateful every day that you let me." "Not first everything," Chiara corrected. "Only everything." "Only everything," Matteo repeated. "I like that." And there, in their home full of love, full of memories, full of possibilities, they remained embraced. Two people who had found each other when neither was looking. Two people who had built a life together. Two people who still loved each other, deeply, completely, forever. 20 years passed. Sophia was now a 34-year-old woman, married to Marco, that boy she had liked in high school who had never let her go. They had 2 children, twins, a boy and a girl. Matteo and Chiara were grandparents, a role Matteo had sworn to hate, but secretly adored. "Grandpa Matteo!" the twins screamed every time they saw him, running toward him with arms open. And he, the man who was once feared in all the boardrooms of Italy, melted completely. Chiara had published 15 books now. She was considered one of the most important voices in Italian romantic literature. She had won awards, been translated into 22 languages, changed lives with her words. Matteo, now 66, had officially retired from business. He had passed the company to trusted managers, keeping only a consulting position. He wanted more time with Chiara, with family, with the life they had built. One autumn evening, they were at their house in Tuscany, the one they had bought years before as a refuge. Now they spent most of their time there, away from the frenzy of Milan. The sun was setting, painting the sky orange and pink. They sat on the terrace, hands intertwined, watching the vineyards stretching before them. "You know what I'm thinking," Chiara said. "Tell me," Matteo said. "I'm thinking about the day I met you, 28 years ago. It seems like a lifetime, and also yesterday." "I know what you mean," Matteo said. "I remember everything about that day. What you were wearing, how you trembled, the way you looked at me when I told you you could start." "I was so scared," Chiara said, laughing. I thought you'd eat me alive." "I almost did," Matteo joked. "I was an arrogant idiot." "No," Chiara said. "You were a lonely man who had built walls so high no one could get in. Until me." "Until you," Matteo confirmed. "You demolished every wall, with patience, with love, with that adorable stubbornness of yours." Chiara laughed. "I'm not stubborn. You're the most stubborn person I know, and it's one of the things I love most about you." They kissed, a slow kiss, full of years of history. "Do you have regrets?" Matteo asked. "About the life we've lived?" "Not one," Chiara said immediately. "You?" "Only that I didn't meet you sooner, that we lost years we could have spent together. But maybe we needed those years," Chiara said thoughtfully. "Maybe we had to be who we were, to become who we are." "You've become philosophical in your old age," Matteo teased. "I'm becoming wise," Chiara corrected. "There's a difference?" They laughed, and the sound filled the sunset air. "You know what's the strangest thing?" Chiara said after a moment. "What?" "People always ask me where my stories come from, how I create characters, plots, emotions, and I've never told them the truth." "What's the truth?" Matteo asked, though he already knew. "That I write about us, always about us. Every book, every story, every character is a fragment of what we've built. It's my way of immortalizing our love." Matteo felt tears rising, something that happened more often now that he was older, less worried about hiding emotions. "I'm honored," he said, voice broken. "To be your muse." "You're not just my muse," Chiara said. "You're my life, my inspiration, my reason." They stood, went inside. The kitchen smelled of the sauce Chiara had prepared earlier. They ate slowly, talking about everything and nothing. About Sophia and Marco, the grandchildren, the book Chiara was working on, the garden Matteo was trying to cultivate without much success. After dinner, they sat in the library Matteo had built for Chiara. Shelves full of books from floor to ceiling, a comfortable armchair near the fireplace. Chiara's favorite place in the world. "Read me something," Matteo said, lying on the couch. "What do you want to hear?" "What you're writing now." Chiara hesitated. "It's not finished." "I don't care. I want to hear it." She took her notebook, settled in the armchair, and began to read. It was a story about two elderly people looking back at their life together, at the joys, the pains, the triumphs, the challenges, and how, through it all, their love had remained constant. When she finished reading the last chapter written, she looked up and saw Matteo crying silently. "Matteo," she said, worried, "are you okay?" "I'm better than okay," he said. "It's beautiful, Chiara. It's our story." "It is," she admitted. "My last book. I wanted to write about our journey, from beginning to end." "It's not the end," Matteo said firmly. "We still have years ahead." "I know," Chiara said. "But when the time comes, I want the world to know. I want them to know that true love exists, that it lasts, that it's worth every moment." That night, lying in bed, Matteo said, "Chiara, can I ask you something?" "Anything." "When I'm gone, when I'm not here anymore, promise me you'll continue to live, that you'll keep writing, creating, finding joy." Chiara stiffened. "I don't want to talk about this." "I know, but we have to, because sooner or later, one of us will go. And I want to know that whoever stays will be okay." Chiara turned to him, tears streaming. "How can I be okay without you? You're part of me. You're everything." "And I'll always be with you," Matteo said, wiping her tears. "In every word you write, in every memory we share, in Sophia, in the grandchildren, I'll be there." "It's not enough," Chiara said. "I know," Matteo admitted. But it's what we have, and we must be grateful for the time we've had. How many people can say they found true love? That they had decades of happiness? We're blessed, Kiara, she nodded, though the thought of losing him broke her heart. Promise me too, she said. If I go first, promise you'll live, that you'll find joy, that you won't shut down. I promise, Matteo said, even though it will be the hardest thing I've ever done. They held each other that night, tighter than usual, aware of life's fragility, the preciousness of every moment. But the years continued, and both remained healthy. They aged together, gracefully, with dignity. Chiara's hair turned gray, then white. The lines on Matteo's face deepened, but his eyes remained the same. Gray, intense, full of love when he looked at her. They celebrated their 30th wedding anniversary with a big party. Sophia organized everything, inviting family, friends, colleagues. There were speeches, toasts, laughter, and tears. To the couple who taught me what it means to truly love, Sophia said, raising her glass. Mom, Dad, you're proof that fairy tales exist, that true love conquers all, that when you find the right person, every day is a gift. Chiara and Matteo looked at each other, smiling through tears. 30 years, Chiara whispered, and it feels like it just started. The best 30 years of my life, Matteo said, and I hope for 30 more. Another 50, Chiara corrected. I want to grow old with you until we're 110. Deal, Matteo said, kissing her in front of everyone's applause. That night at home, exhausted but happy, they lay in bed. Thank you, Matteo said. For what? For everything. For taking a chance on me. For not giving up when I was difficult. For loving me when I didn't know how to love myself. For building this beautiful life with me. Chiara smiled. Thank you. For seeing me when no one did. For giving me the courage to believe in myself. For being my first kiss, my first love, my first everything. And for being my last everything too. First and last, Matteo said. There's never been anyone else. There will never be anyone else. Not even in eternity, Chiara agreed. And as they fell asleep, hands intertwined, hearts beating in unison, both knew they had lived a life worth writing about. A life full of love, laughter, challenges, triumphs. A life lived fully, together. Chiara's final book, Whispers of a Lifetime, came out when she was 62. It was the complete story of their love, from first meeting to the last day together. It was raw, honest, beautiful. It became an immediate phenomenon. People cried, reading it. They wrote letters to Chiara saying she had changed how they viewed love, that she had given them hope, that she had shown them it's worth waiting for the right person. The day of the book launch, Matteo was in the front row, as always. Now 72, his hair completely white, but still handsome, still imposing. When Chiara began reading the last chapter, the one about him, her voice broke. This book is dedicated to the man who taught me what it means to be loved, she said. To the man who took a scared, insecure girl and helped her become the woman she is today. To the man who was my first kiss, my first love, my first everything. She stopped, looking directly at Matteo. Matteo Ferrante, you took my life and transformed it into something magical. And I hope this book does for others what you did for me. Show them they're worthy of love, that they're enough, that they deserve someone who really sees them. The entire room applauded. Matteo stood, went up on stage and hugged his wife. You're extraordinary, he said in her ear. You always have been. That evening, at home, Chiara asked, Do you feel exposed? now that the whole world knows our story?" "No," Matteo said. "I feel honored. Honored that you wanted to share our love with the world. Honored to be your inspiration." "Not just inspiration," Chiara corrected. "Soulmate, partner, the other piece of my soul." The years continued to pass. 70, 75, 80. They slowed down, naturally. Fewer trips, more quiet days at home. But the quality of their time together never diminished. Every morning, Matteo made coffee for Chiara. Every evening, Chiara read to Matteo. On sunny days, they walked in the vineyards. On rainy days, they stayed in the library, holding hands, simply enjoying each other's presence. Sophia visited often with the grandchildren, now teenagers. "Grandpa, Grandma," the twins said, "tell us again how you fell in love." And they did, every time, adding details, laughing at memories, holding hands. "Does love like yours still exist?" the granddaughter asked. "It exists," Chiara assured, "but you have to be patient. You have to be brave. You have to be willing to be seen. And when you find it," Matteo added, "you have to protect it, cultivate it, celebrate it every day." One day, when Matteo was 82 and Chiara 76, he said, "You know, I've been thinking about something." "What?" "If I could go back, do everything over, I wouldn't change anything. Every moment, every decision, every challenge led to this. To us. And there's nothing more precious." "I wouldn't change anything either," Chiara agreed. "Except maybe meeting you sooner, having more years together." "We'd have to be 150 if you wanted enough time," Matteo laughed. "It wouldn't be enough," Chiara said. "1 million years with you wouldn't be enough." That night, Matteo had a heart attack. Sudden, severe, frightening. Chiara called the ambulance, went with him to the hospital, never left his hand. Doctors stabilized him, but the message was clear. His heart was failing. He still had time, but not much. "I'm not afraid," Matteo told Chiara when they were alone. "Should I be?" "No," Chiara said, though her heart was breaking. "You've lived fully. You've loved deeply. There's nothing to fear. Promise me," Matteo said. "Promise me you'll be okay. That you'll continue." "I promise," Chiara said, tears streaming. "Even though losing you will kill me." "You won't lose me," Matteo said. "I'll always be with you, in every breath, in every heartbeat, in every word you write. I'm not really leaving. I'm just transforming, becoming part of you." Matteo lived another 6 months. 6 precious months, where every moment counted. Chiara didn't leave his side. Sophia came every day. The grandchildren read to him. And Matteo, even as he weakened, smiled. Because he was surrounded by love. The last day, Matteo was in their bed at home. He had wanted to die there, not in a hospital. Surrounded by his family, in the house he had built with Chiara. Chiara lay beside him, head on his chest. Listening to his heart slow down. "Chiara," he whispered. "I'm here," she said. "Always here." "I love you," Matteo said. "More than life itself. You were my salvation. My miracle. My everything." "And you were mine," Chiara said, crying. "My first kiss. My first love. My only love." "First and last," Matteo said, repeating the words they had said so many times. "First and last," Chiara confirmed. Matteo smiled, closed his eyes, and with one last breath, he was gone. Chiara stayed there, holding him, crying, but also grateful. Grateful for every moment they had had, for every kiss, every conversation, every day together. She had lost her heart, but she had had the honor of loving him for 50 years. The funeral was huge. Hundreds of people came to pay tribute to Matteo Ferrante, the legendary CEO, the philanthropist, the father, the grandfather, But for Chiara, he was just her Matteo, the man who had seen her, the man who had loved her. In the following months, Chiara struggled. The grief was devastating, but she kept her promise. She continued to live. She wrote one last book, a memoir of their time together, titled simply Matteo. It came out a year after his death and became her most beloved work. People wrote saying it had helped them process their losses, that it had given them hope, that it had shown them love doesn't end with death. Chiara lived another 10 years after Matteo, years full of Sofia, the grandchildren, writing, memories. And when her time finally came, at 86, she died peacefully in her sleep, a smile on her face. Sofia found a letter beside her bed. It was addressed to her. "My dear Sofia," the letter said, "if you're reading this, it means I'm gone, and I'm okay with that. I've lived an incredible life. I've loved deeply. I've created. I've laughed. I've cried. I've lived. And now I'm going to your father. I imagine him waiting for me, like he did so many times, with that smile that melted me, with those arms that made me feel safe, with that love that never ended. Take care of your children. Teach them what we taught you, that true love exists, that it's worth waiting for, that when you find it, you have to protect it with everything you have. And always remember, your father and I loved you more than life. You were our greatest success. With all my love, now and always, Mom." Sofia cried reading the letter, but she also smiled because her parents had had something special, something rare, and she was grateful to have seen it, to have lived it, to be able to pass it on. At Chiara's funeral, Sofia read the last chapter of the book, Matteo. It spoke of how love doesn't end, but transforms, how two people who love each other become part of one another, and when they separate physically, they still remain united in soul. "My mother wrote," Sofia said, voice breaking, "that she had never been kissed before meeting my father, that he was her first everything. But she also wrote that he was her last everything, and now they're together again, first and last, for eternity." The crowd applauded through tears, and somewhere, Chiara and Matteo found each other again. Wherever love goes after this life, they were there, together, as they were always meant to be, hand in hand, heart against heart, souls intertwined forever. And perhaps this is the final truth. True love doesn't die. It transforms, evolves, continues. In the people it touches, in the stories it leaves, in the hearts it changes. Chiara had started her journey as a woman who had never been kissed, who didn't believe she deserved love. But she had found Matteo, and he had shown her not only how to be loved, but how to love. And together they had created something immortal. Not just a family, not just a life, but a story. A story that continues to inspire, to give hope, to remind the world that true love exists, that it lasts, that it's worth every moment of waiting, every tear, every challenge. Because when you find the person who really sees you, who loves you completely, who stays with you through everything, you've found something that not even death can destroy. You've found eternity. And Chiara and Matteo had found it. First and last. Forever. If this story has touched your heart, subscribe to the channel and leave a like. Comment where you're listening from. And if you felt it was really worth it, consider becoming a member to get early access to upcoming stories. And if you felt this story was really worth listening to, also click the super thanks button. Your gesture makes all the difference and helps us continue creating stories that touch the soul.